Most people are like, I want to have $1 billion company. First of all, no, you're never going to have $1 billion company. A lot of folks made a lot of money during the pandemic. The pandemicpreneurs, they were killing it out here. And as long as you're afraid to tell anybody how your company is run, you will run that company yourself to the day you die.
And it will die with you.
Most people should not be CEOs. They just know how to do a skill. 72% of entrepreneurs state that they have anxiety and or are medicated. And to help you, Sugarfoot, success doesn't love speed. Success loves systems.
If you were to die today, would your business die with you? But that's the reality of most small business owners. Because if you don't have a system in place, if you don't have procedures in place, if you don't have the right people in place, when you die, your business will die as well. So today we have a phenomenal guest who's going to talk about the systems, the operations, the procedures that you need to put in place to have your business live beyond you and create generational wealth for you and your family. All that plus more in today's episode.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Melanin Money Show. And this episode is going to be, let's just say, very systematized. Right? It's going to have a different structure.
Good God. Yeah.
But that's because we have Connie Falls, known as the Systems Bae. She's a business systems consultant, author, speaker with 18 years of experience helping entrepreneurs build businesses that don't rely on burnout and survival. And I could go on for another good 10 minutes, but because we have her here in the studio, I'm not, so that we can just unpack the story in real time. So with no further ado, Connie, you.
I'm doing awesome. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. Systems don't fail, people do.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Systems are the way you want things to go. People have feelings. People are emotional. That's why we lean towards policy versus feelings. Boundaries, people, feelings. Boundaries are people, policies are business. So systems don't fail because it's set up the way it's supposed to run.
Right.
People and their emotions, they have bad days, your daughter's out of school late, all of those things change. They're different variables, but systems stay the same.
And so give us your background, because here's my perspective, right? Like, we have operations department, and then they're kind of the unsung heroes, right? They do all the magic behind the scenes, whether it's the tech side or the policy procedure side, and no one sees their face, right? But we all feel the impact of the work that they do. So what made you decide that I want to get in a career that can help people's back end of their business, if you will?
So I have ADHD, very, very, very serious disorder that most people don't realize they have until they're older. I was diagnosed when I was young. So I was able to see that my brain processes information differently. So if you say, hey, Connie, go into the kitchen and grab a bottle, grab the thing off the top, I'm like, okay, which one do you want me to get first? And then second, and then third, and can I carry them all? And what's what's the best way for me to carry them back? Should I bring one back? How much time is it going to take me to get everything and then bring it back? Like, that's how I think, and it would I would be stuck sometimes. So you'll see me at home when I'm cleaning up, and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm like, okay, but there's a glass in the living room if I'm gonna run the dishwasher. So because my mind processes information like that, I realized how much I struggled, and then being able to see businesses, they struggle the same way. Sure. Where do I start? Who do I hire? What's the first thing that I need to do when I walk into the business of the day? And so seeing the juxtaposition between those two, I also went to college. I have a undergrad is in business management and a master's degree in organizational management. So for me, it's order. Like, okay, I can understand it if you explain it 1, 2, 3, but if you're saying 3, 2, 1, what is you talking about?
Gotcha.
So for me, the processes that are getting our businesses stuck behind is that everything is stuck in everyone's head, right? It's just here. And so if I took you out, your business is gonna fail. And then I know y'all love to talk about generational wealth, but there's no generational wealth without generational documentation. And so if you haven't documented anything to be able to pass down and train somebody else to do, it's going to fail. So for me, having the ADHD and then looking at businesses and over time realizing that I'm probably really not a great employee, kind of suck at the employee part.
None of us are. Yeah. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And I would end up writing change management plans during my lunch breaks. Like, so you guys know if you just did this, and actually I had this, it's all right, I have a whiteboard, I'll draw it out. And here's some SOPs to be able to support it. That's how my brain would work. And so doing that in other companies that I was working in, getting paid $12 an hour, and they'd be like, yeah, that's great. Take the paperwork and be like, oh, this is actually great. And then they go and implement it on the back. And then I'm like, yeah, I was just looking for the change to be able to help the construction people out in the field. Versus me looking at smaller businesses and saying, so if y'all did this, if people that looked like me did this, if we started implementing this on the front end of our business when we first start, how much more sustainable would these companies be? So that's where it started, is from ADHD.
Yeah. And I can relate to that because I have ADHD as well. And he can't realize that when he tells me something 7 years out, my brain can't go there. No. And so we have a rule now. He has to say, take this ride with me before he tells me anything outside of 12 months.
I received that.
Because I can't get there. But thank you. I thought I was just me, but I appreciate
you never told me that.
I didn't know how to vocalize it. It just stresses me out when you say so. Thank you.
And it's hard because the executive function that's in your head, it'll shut off. It does not like you. It's not your friend.
Yeah.
And so I can say I have a pencil that's on my floor that is my enemy, and it's been there. I don't even know how long it's been there. But that pencil, I cannot make myself bend over and get this pencil off the ground. My mind just will not do it. Now, I may pick up some other stuff and do other things, or hire the housekeepers to come in and get it.
Right.
And they're like, Miss Connie, do you want us to leave the pencils? Yes. Yes, I do want you to leave the pencil, because one of these days I'm going to pull it together. Yeah. But it's hard. It's a stressor. And so when people are telling you things that you can't even process in your mind when you're so far away, when you're trying to deal with the things you have going on right now, it is stressful. So I understand. I'm here with you.
Yeah, this is a therapy session for us. But you mentioned that as well as important as systems are, systems have to be done by the people, right? So how do we balance putting a great system in place as business owners, but having to deal with the people having to actually do the work? Because if people don't do it, the system is essentially null and void. So once we get systems in place, how do we balance that with the people we bring into the company to actually make sure they do what the system says?
So I want to go back a little bit because what happens is none of the stuff is written down.
Yeah.
90% of businesses, and probably more than that if we're talking about those small businesses under $30 million, it's in the CEO's head, the way that you see things getting done, and it's not on paper anywhere. So when people come in and work for your company, you're training them off the dome. You're saying, hey, I just need you to come in here. And you the video do Isaiah bet. Okay, so set the camera here, set the camera here, set the camera here. But if Isaiah goes on vacation, the next videographer, the editor, whoever comes in here, they're not going to know why you set the things up that they did, because you never wrote it down and created SOPs and processes on why it gets done that way.
Right.
But nobody stops to think of that. They're just like, yeah, it's common sense. There's no such thing as common sense. It's only systems. So the goal is to, one, get everything out of the head.
Right.
That is a struggle.
And let's talk about that just real quick. What does that getting out of the head process look like when you're meeting with a small business owner?
So we start org chart down. Here's why. Most people are like, yeah, I want to have $1 billion company. First of all, no, you're not. You're never going to have $1 billion company. I'm going to have $1 million company. Okay, great. Do you know how many people it's going to take to get $1 million sustainable company? Because a lot of folks made a lot of money during the pandemic. The pandemicpreneurs, they were killing it out here in the streets.
Yeah. Right? Two people. An assistant and maybe an ads person.
Right. Killing it, making $1 million selling candles.
Yeah.
Ain't no candle businesses open right now.
Right.
Yeah. No disrespect to the candle companies. I love y'all, buy a lot of candles. Yeah. But what I'm saying is they were able to do it. And so it seemed realistic when it's not. That's not what the real market looks like, right? So for people that think that they could build businesses and just throw them together out of nowhere, that's not reality.
Right.
So we start with the organizational chart. And that's because I need you to see how many heads it takes. That goes along with salaries and roles and tasks and responsibilities, because most CEOs are wearing 100 hats, right? And so if I put a real genuine hat on how many people for all the roles that you really need, then you get to evaluate, okay, how much money is my company actually worth? How big can I grow this company, right? Because if you say, okay, great, we want to have a studio, formal giant studio, how many more Isaiahs are we going to need? How many more people are we going to need? How many more cameras do I have to buy?
Right.
Where are we going to keep them? Are we going to have security? How many cameras are we going to have, right? All of those things go into place. So the people that were making the money, especially during the pandemic, when they looked and assessed what they were building, it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
And so when I'm looking at a small business, I'm able to look and see, okay, great, you guys together, you can have 100 employees because you understand that each one has a role. Here are the tasks. But when it comes to getting it out of your head, that means that y'all got to stop moving and actually start writing things down. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Because you're rolling, right? You're rocking and rolling. And that's why people mostly bring our company in, and then we force you to sit down. Because after the amount of money you're going to have to give me to work with me, you're going to sit down. You're going to sit down, right?
Take a seat, take your shoes off, stay a while.
Get in your little Indian style seating and go and sit down.
Yeah.
But we extract all that information because it's hard. Traditionally, especially, we work primarily with businesses, minorities, creatives, veterans, and women. And so those folks have never really been taught how to be entrepreneurs. We've never been taught how to run a business. We've been taught how to be employees. Right. And then culturally, if you look at people of color, you're taught to not go out here telling people your business. Don't tell nobody your secret sauce. What happens in this house stays in this house, right? And so I have to pull. That's why I'm the nurturer. Right. We have to pull. My team has to get this information. Well, they don't need to know that. I don't need to write that down. Yeah, you need to write that down too. That's part of your secret sauce. And as long as you're afraid to tell anybody how your company is run, you will run that company yourself to the day you die.
And it will die with you.
And it'll die with you. And I've sat on a deathbed and tried to write out, process a recipe for a man that had a barbecue spot. And he did not. This is what's going to happen with people. I'm sure y'all buying businesses right now, but these boomers do not trust their children. They don't, or the kids don't want the businesses. And I had to sit bedside in a hospital with this man writing down the recipe for his barbecue sauce because he didn't trust his kids. And we did not have enough time to finish it. And that company does not exist anymore. Wow. So when I think about sustainability, that's what that's the first picture I have in my head, is that your business is going to die with you until you get what's in your head out. And if you're afraid of it, how dare you? Because KFC is a $1 billion company with these secret recipes that are run by urban kids. Right. So if these little 17-year-old kids from the hood are running a $1 billion company on the operations and customer service side, how dare you think that you can't give somebody the recipe for your little candles?
That's a fact. Yeah. That's a fact.
So that is the part where we have to pull the information from the people, and it ain't easy.
Okay, now that's helpful. And one thing we talked about offline before we hopped on is, so you have, like the policies, process, and procedures, right, side of systems, right, and the documentation of what needs to be done. And then you have, I guess, the technology of the systems. Can you kind of just loosely explain the differences? I think when most people hear systems, they automatically assume CRM, technology, and they want to throw tech at something. But then it's like, okay, now you have the CRM, but what you going to do with it, right? So that I don't think people connect that dot. So can you help us delineate the difference between the two?
Absolutely, because that's a question I get all the time too. And I've done a poor job publicly explaining any of this stuff because
exclusive. It's all about the frame. Right? I've been waiting.
Sorry. This is the moment I've been waiting. Melon and Money, I've been waiting on you guys to give me a call so I could explain this to your people.
There we go.
That sound better? Okay. Yeah. So here's why this is important and why I should have been sharing it before. The tech side is great. I don't know if you guys have heard of like what's happened in the last couple of years. It's this thing like AI. Y'all ever heard of it?
Yep. Little thing called AI.
Just a little thing. It's so crazy that the way that things used to be done 4 years ago, you can't do it the same. Or you could do it better and you could do it faster, right? And so that goes on the tech side. How the company runs, if I'm going in here and I have a bakery, right? Thinking of brick and mortar companies. If I have a bakery, the way my recipe is still the same. The way I bake the cake is still the same. The way I'm making the pies is still the same. Now, am I able to do faster marketing? Absolutely. But if you've never documented your recipes, what happens when you go and throw ads on it? What happens when you go and throw the tech on top of it? You will get all of the people coming in and not have any processes to be able to scale the company.
Right.
So what happens, we could look at clothing companies. Oh my God, yeah, we're gonna have a sale. It's gonna be wonderful. We're selling Melon and Money shirts and it's gonna be $1 a shirt. Yeah, we wanna get our name out there. Okay, great.
Yeah.
200,000 people buy that shirt for $1. Who finna package this stuff, right? So the operational side, if you haven't figured that out first, that's where you're gonna struggle before you even get to the tech. So we actually get a lot of referrals from tech companies because they say, yeah, we don't wanna ask them all these questions. They need to already have the processes and the workflows, if this, all the if and then statements. So in the tech space, and I'll go back between both of them. On the tech side, the CRMs and the platforms and all the AI stuff, it wants you to tell it something. So even if you have ChatGPT and you don't have any prompts because you don't know, everything's trapped up here and you don't even know what to ask it to give you the answers that you want, you're still gonna fail. On the operational side, we build out all the questions and the answers. We already have that answered for you. So all those if and then statements, okay, what happens if one of the microphone goes out? What happens? Then you do this. And then if we don't have another backup microphone, then that means this. And then who is responsible for that? So if all of this isn't answered on the front end, it doesn't matter what you have on the tech side. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So my goal is to make sure that, yes, I love the tech. Yes, that's great. but your CRMs can change.
Right.
OpenAI is going to change. All of these new softwares and tools are going to change, but the way you bake that pie is still the same. I need to document your recipe. Operational systems are the recipe. Tech is your oven. Yay, I'm glad you have
Ooh, that's a bar.
It took me a second to process. Okay, yeah. I see what you're doing there. Yeah.
That's the first time I said that. And that was off the dome.
It's something about
be the
these
last.
seats. Yeah. It's something about these seats that just get the best out of
I'm talking about it is a delicious seat. This is nice. This is really nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad y'all finally came because I was about to come out the door with these. But that's what it is because, yay, I have an oven. It could be the most lavish, expensive Dutch oven.
Yeah.
It does not matter if you don't know how to make the pie.
Facts.
If you're the only person with the recipe and you leave,
Right.
what's going to happen? And that's what's wrong with, not what's wrong. We're just not educated in, especially culturally. That's what's happening right now is that all these folks, they're like, I need help. I need help. Okay, what do you need help with? Everything.
Right.
Which things? And then, I'm just going to hire a VA. VAs are not magical fairies. They're not magical fairies. You couldn't figure it out and you know how to do it. You just expect somebody from the Philippines to be able to walk in the door and now all of a sudden they know how to do it.
Yeah.
No, you have to still be able to do. Well, they said on their resume that they knew how to do marketing. They knew how to do social media management. Well, how do you want yours managed? Your social media is different than mine. I'll be like, you could post once a week. You'd be like, I'll kill you if you post once a week on my page, right? Yeah. So you still have to train people, and you cannot train people off the dome.
Right. Okay.
You cannot train, or you're not supposed to, because you can do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
But you will not be here.
Yeah. Or you have to keep redoing it the next time the next person comes in.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking like, oh, well, if this person stays around forever, I told them off the top of my dome. As long as they remember, they'll be okay. What happens if they get sick? What happens if they leave? Right. This is a statement that I live by, and I don't know. At some point, I won't take credit for it. It's just more out of frustration. Where I started adopting like SOPs and processes is because in 2014, I was just getting into like entrepreneurship for real. And people kept asking me the same question. I was like, I don't want to repeat myself, so I'm just going to write a blog. Right? I didn't call it a system. It was just like, I'm going to write this down so that if someone asks me again, I can just send them the link. Right. And then I realized like, oh, well, I should do that for almost everything. And then I also live by this quote that you cannot delegate what you can't articulate. Right. And so it's like you expect to be able to lead people and want them to do this and do that. And you can't even say out of your mouth clearly what you want to have happen. Yes, you might have some rock stars or A players who just get you and they can extract stuff out of you, but that's an anomaly. That's not the norm. Right. The reason why McDonald's can operate the way they operate is because they have these processes in place. Yes, every now and then, right, you might attract these super rock stars, but you don't want to optimize for that, right? You want to optimize for the baseline. And so that's 100%. Where, for me, that's where that mentality started to become very important. My first full-time hire became that person. But you helped me realize that we've been treating our operations team like a technology team. They've been both, right? So if you think about it, they've been coming up with the if this, then that statements and figuring out those configurations. But they've also been building out the systems. And so they've technically been wearing two hats this entire time. Well, you just made me have that realization.
And I don't want to say it out loud in case they watch, but that's also two salaries.
Yeah.
Because those are
Sam, Leah, Jackson, don't watch this part of the episode.
Let's please whisper that.
Edit that part out.
Even more quietly. But no, the first time the systems became important to me, because me and George are opposite, right? He took all the systems. I'm like, bro, we got to run and gun. Ain't nobody got time to be sitting down and writing these systems. So I'm that guy, right? With this pain. God gave him patience, right? Yeah. Because I'm like, why am I spending all this time writing these things down? As long as I know how to do it, like I'm gonna tell the person what to do and they're gonna keep going. But then I heard Alex Ramosi say, in order to have excellence, you have to operationalize it. Meaning that if like everything in your business should have a checklist, like your social media, this is how you post, this is where you put the caption, this is what words to turn red to get the people's attention. And when I did it, I thought it was only 5 things, but there's actually 35 things I do before I post on social media.
Slow clap for that. Yes.
And I'm like, oh, so it's not one golden bullet. It's like, 100 silver BBs that turn into that golden bullet. And that's when it became real for me. So the question I have for you is, if we're looking at somebody's business, we have all these core departments. We have marketing, we have sales, we have customer fulfillment. If you were to look into a business, which place would you start to begin for an entrepreneur to set up their procedures, and why?
So we tell people to start first. the CEO.
Okay.
Because a very harsh truth is that most people should not be CEOs. That they just know how to do a skill. So many times we have to start with making sure the CEO knows what they're supposed to do. And so when we look at, and you guys can look around and look at business owners right now and be like, you would be much better if you just did credit.
Yeah.
Don't do the credit part.
Yeah.
You should not run a credit company.
Right.
Just because you're good at baking pies does not mean that you should own a bakery.
The E-Myth Revisited taught
Exactly.
us that. Yeah.
Yes. You don't need to be able to, you don't need to be in that position. So one, we force people, that's why we start org chart down. We do that really genuinely for the CEO first, because I need you to look at it, not just the title, because it sounds cool these days, because entrepreneurship is cool. I need you to look at the tasks that fall underneath it and make sure that you're qualified to be this leader. 9 times out of 10 people are not, but they're still like, but I want to own it. You could be a founder, but you shouldn't be the CEO.
Yeah.
So the first role we look at is the CEO. After that, we look at who is supporting the CEO before we get to the departments, because this person that knows all the stuff that everybody else in every department is supposed to do, who's going to get that and be responsible for that person that acts like us, that's crazy like me and you? He organized and everything, but us, who is responsible for us? Who's going to keep us on the leash and pull us back? And we're like, yeah, let's go. I need that person in place next. Then we can start talking about the departments. The fulfillment department, I need them to know what they're doing. Because I can put the marketing out here and y'all can run ads and it'd be 100 million people in here trying to buy these shirts. But who finna fulfill it, right? So we start with fulfillment after that, making sure that they're well trained. All the documentation is in place. Everyone is well trained, because if they're not trained, it doesn't matter how many people you bring in. It doesn't matter how well the CEO is doing. It doesn't matter what the customer service. They could have the best customer service, but the fulfillment part is where people fall short. So fulfillment is going to be first. Or service. Because again, I can market my tail off. But if they get on the phone with one of y'all, girl, bye, I'm not going to send that out. That's your fault you ordered the wrong side. The fulfillment doesn't have anything to do, right? So fulfillment, customer service, HR, unless you're running a company with a large team, some of those things you could outsource 100%, unless you're building, I know you guys are building something large, but HR, most of the time you can outsource that unless you have a large team.
Got you.
But first I would definitely start fulfillment, then customer service.
That makes sense.
Makes sense. Cool. So yeah, we did all the above, so we're in good shape.
Good.
We're in good shape.
Wait, are y'all just checking to see what y'all did?
Well, I mean, some of these are asked for a friend. I mean, this is where the point of having a good podcast. You get to ask some of the questions you've been wanting to ask.
I don't have to pay you a lot of money to get this study.
Y'all, I see, I respect it.
Nah, but since you have had an opportunity to help so many different diverse businesses across multiple spectrums, what do you see as a common thread of just like a misstep when it comes to operational excellence?
People not realizing how much money it takes to hire good people.
We can spend an hour talking about this.
Yeah, it's expensive. Like my number 2 makes a lot of money. She makes more money than I do on the books. You know what I mean? But I don't have to touch anything.
Right.
My job as a CEO is to think. That's my number 1 responsibility. I live in ideation. Wait, y'all just looked at each other. Hold on, what happened? Tell me.
Nah, just things that I tell him that he now has to.
Well, so it's like, you know, the married couple that you tell your spouse something, but then somebody else says it, and it's like, yeah.
I know, I understand, but that's my number 1 responsibility, and they allowed me to do this. But here's what I did. My number 2, her name is Stephanie Brinkley. Shout out, Steph, I love you. She trained under me for 2 years without ever having to say anything on a call. I knew her level of discernment. I knew her relationship with God. I knew her relationship with her spouse and her children. I understood her character when I hired her. I hire for character first, skills second, because I could teach you anything.
Right.
If I believe that you're smart, I'm not hiring anybody that I don't believe is smart, but I can teach you and train you anything. 2 years she sat on the phone, and every call, every time we got off, tell me what you thought I did. What did I talk about today that I didn't talk about before? It took time for her to get the confidence to be able to say, okay, well, the last call you said, and I would miss things on purpose.
Yeah.
So boss, I saw that and for 2 years we went back and forth. 100% me talking, 0% her. Then it was 80-20. Then it was 50-50. And then it was, I can't get on that call today with the client. Could you go ahead and do the call?
Yeah.
To where I don't know who we have on the roster at this point.
Yeah.
But it took 2 years of her getting paid at her full salary to not say anything and just take notes and think and have the level of discernment. Because some days you're going to get cussed out. Not with real cuss words, but we're going to be on your tail. And then some days we're going to be in prayer.
Right.
If I hear it in your voice, how was your day? Well, okay, we're going to put the SOPs aside. How are you? So that's because we're more of a nurturing company who actually loves our clients.
Yeah.
We're going to have a prayer day today. But I needed my number 2 to be able to do that. And I had to be able to pay her well enough to keep her there because she's brilliant. And now she's trained under me. All of our clients be like, how Connie treating you over?
Yeah.
Don't you want to come with us? She's like, no, I'm straight. But that's because I built a system of how to treat our team, how to make sure that they're well paid. What happens is y'all want folks that do $100,000 work, but you want to pay them $5 an hour like they're coming out the Philippines. You can't. Is that Isaiah laughing in there? Because that's real, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I would. The answer is yes. I would love to be able to pay you pennies on the dollar, but for me to be able to keep you in this market, knowing the skill set that I've trained you to be able to do, and now at this point she's been with me for 6 years this year.
Wow.
And the rest of our team, we've had people for years and years on our team because I know how to treat them, because I make sure that they're okay, because they have paid vacations, your birthday is off, and go whatever you want to do, go do that. You don't have a time you have to work. But I've trained you that way to know, and I'm hiring for character. So I'm not worried about how much people are getting paid. So I think that's the number one thing, because everybody needs help.
Right.
But you don't want to train the people to do it right. You don't want to pay them well enough to stay.
Yeah. I think one of the most, the biggest realization that we had was last year is that people are not an expense, the right people, right? Because if you can get C-level talent for, let's call it $50,000 a year, and A-level talent might be $120,000 a year. Let's call it $100,000 a year, so double. If you pay that C player that $50,000 and you think you're saving 50, they're costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars because they can't do the actual work. The work of an A player, they can outperform that C player by 5x. So you paid them 2x, but they're outperforming that person by 5 and 10x. Yes. And the second realization that we had, this was more so me, I had like $100,000 salary might scare a lot of entrepreneurs. But you're not paying that. The moment that person starts, you're not cutting them a check for $100,000.
Correct.
Their salary is whatever 100,000 divided by 12 is, $8,000 a month. And if they do their job by month number 2, 3, they're going to be making you more than the money you're putting out. So it's not that you have to pay this person $100,000 salary the moment they start. 90 days into the role, they should be making more than their salary on a monthly basis. So really, people are an investment, and it took us a long time to realize that. So I know starting out entrepreneurs, it's hard for them to fathom paying somebody that much, but that's what it takes 100%. To get the right people.
And most of the time, they've never made that much money.
Yeah.
Right. The people that you don't want to pay anybody $100,000, you've never made $100,000. You was making $36,000 before the pandemic, and then you sold some candles. And I'm not getting on the candle industry.
Yeah, but say candle, they'll come for you in the comments.
Straight.
They'll come for you in the comments.
The candles are catching straight. You lighting them up, pun intended.
Took me a second.
Where's the drum? I'm here all night, everybody.
Dad jokes,
But, I love that. But that is what happened. Is that you've never made $100,000. So the thought of paying somebody $100,000 is crazy. Right. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we may be like, okay.
And then the other thing we got to realize too is like your vision has to be big enough to contain theirs too.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, the audacity of saying, okay, I want you to work for me for less than $100,000 for the foreseeable future. I want to run this thing up to multi-7 figures. I just want you to be at bay and be cool, do all this work for me, and be completely fulfilled building my dream, and I'm paying you $60,000, $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. And so people got to realize, it's like, okay, well, if I want people to be here with me for the long haul, number one, I have to have something that's going to be here for the long haul, right? Which has to be expansive, which requires systems and processes and all those things too. But it also has to take into consideration, well, what is your dream, right? Which goes back to the way you said you hire, like you're hiring for character first, but you're also caring about them as a person, full stop, right? And that's going to help you understand, well, what does a growth track look like? Am I building a company that has the trajectory for that person's vision to be in alignment with mine? And if so, then it's a win. But it's probably not going to look like $60,000 a year for the next 20 years.
No, it's
right.
Not.
And I think that's the part that people have to get. So it's like, you have to, which is why you say everybody can't be a CEO, because your vision has to be expansive enough and not delusional, but expansive enough to quantifiably believe that this is where we're headed. And that's what gives you the confidence to say yes today, because you know where you're going, right? I know where our company is going. So what gives me the confidence to say yes today that might not make sense to my team and even him at times is because I know where we're going, right? And I think more entrepreneurs have to have a self-reflection of like, do you know? And if you don't, you're a founder. Maybe you're not a CEO. Maybe you do bring somebody with that expansive vision in. You still, founder represents your equity. CEO represents your job title.
Come on, God. Yes.
Right. And I think people don't get that. It's like, it's okay. Jeff Bezos does not work for Amazon no more, but who do you think is the richest person associated with Amazon?
Exactly.
Jeff Bezos. And the more people can detach from that and realize like, where should I be within this company? Maybe it's not a CEO. Maybe you're a tech person. You want to get back to tinkering, but you have to be willing to answer that question for the sake of the company that you say you want to build.
I love that. And that is why we start with the org chart.
Right.
Because once we print that thing out, once you see that it's 65 roles on there and you got you and a VA working,
right,
and you're like, yeah, I'm finna do it. Okay, let me show you what it's going to take to build this agency. Let me show you what it's going to take to build this restaurant. It's going to take this many people with this many salaries.
Right.
And then here's the job descriptions that go along with it. And here are the SOPs to be able to do those jobs. And here's the policies that support those SOPs.
Right.
And then I want you to point at the job you think you're qualified for. And we're going to stand there together.
Right.
And you're going to point. You're going to look at all of these things together with me in your face. And I'm going to do it gently. I want you to point to which one of these that you feel like you're qualified to do. And then when they go back, looking back at the CEO, because that's the role you know everybody wants.
Right, right.
Which one is it that you know how to do?
Yeah.
Bake cakes.
Right.
Great. So then we need somebody else to go and run and have the vision for the company. Habakkuk 2:2, my favorite Bible verse. Write the vision and make it plain. Everybody know that part. It's the second part that people get stuck on, so that those that come after you can run with it.
Come on now.
That is the documentation. Write it down. Because what you're writing, and here's where the common sense part comes in. Well, I already know how to do that. Yes. Right. But the people that come after you, how are they going to do it?
Right.
We have a recipe book in our family that gets passed down and passed down. Now my daughter finally has it. God bless. Hi, Ashley. And now she's able to write down the recipes that she has.
Right.
And she's going to pass that down to her kids. But we wouldn't be able to make my Nana's spaghetti or homemade ice cream if she didn't document how the recipe was made and pass it down.
Yep.
And so when you look at that org chart, it's a reality check for CEOs. It's a reality check to say, it's going to take 35 people for you. This number that you gave me, and I reversed it. Yes, 35 people, honey. And here's the salaries that are attached to it. Tell me, are you prepared for this vision?
Right.
And so first is for the CEO, and then second is for your team. Because if I'm just blindly walking in and like, all right, George and Carter, y'all got a big enough dream to be able to pay me what I want. Are y'all going to be open next year? If you can't show them their path, you may start here as a videographer. You may start here as an admin. You may start here as a VA, but you go from VA to project manager. Here's what your salary and your responsibilities will be. And here's the markers that are going to show what, and then from here, you can go to the department manager. Yeah. But if they can't visually see that and know that you have a visual plan, how are they going to feel confident to be able to stick by your side? Right. Whether or not you're paying them $100,000, you can pay them $5 or $100. Yeah. I don't have the confidence to stand by your side.
Yeah, and one of the that's probably one of the first leadership lessons that I learned from him, because when we came together, he had his own team and I had my own team, and some people on his team were more loyal to his vision than some of my team members were, and I'll pick that up later. I was wondering, like, why are these people just so loyal to him and everything he says? And it was because when he hires people, he takes the time to say, this is where you are now. This is where you're gonna go. And this, I'm like you do that with everybody? I just hire people and say, yo, this is what you go. You ready to run? Let's run. And I think that if you want to be a small time entrepreneur, some of this you might not need everything we're talking about, but you have to ask yourself the question: do you want to be a big business owner, or do you want to stay a small business owner? And the answer to that question is the answer to that question. But you need to know that for you, so you can make the best decision for where you want to go.
And so it's a decision between, is it a business or is it a hobby? Because you can have a hobby and make millions of dollars. It's just something cool that you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Making candles.
And we're back.
Yeah. No, but I use that as an example. I'm sorry, candle makers. Yeah. But that started off as a hobby. It was something you like doing. You love the scent. You like them for your hat. You give them Christmas gifts and Valentine's Day to your friends. And you did it as a hobby. And then you made money. And then you made more money. and then you was rich, and then you was popping, and then you got to do the picture in the living room where you got all the bags and everything out there. Y'all know that picture?
Yeah.
Then you get to do that, which also shows you don't have systems, because that should have been shipped. Why are you bagging this much stuff and it ain't sent out?
Right.
So I hate that picture. But now your living room is covered, and now all the stuff is wonderful and great, even with $1 million.
Yeah.
But you don't have any systems in place. You don't have a way to train a team. There's no succession plan that comes in after that. It's a hobby that makes you some money. It's not a business. I don't care if you got a tax ID number. I don't care if you register with the Secretary of State. You got a trademark. It's still a hobby until you have something that you could pass down to the next generation. Because all you care about is money right now. We don't even take clients. We have trigger words where if I'm doing a discovery session and it's like, yeah, I'm trying to get to the bag. If you say bag,
automatic rejection.
Immediate. I'll finish the call, but automatic rejection. If you're talking about coins, automatic rejection. We're not taking it, because I don't care. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't care how much more money you make. I care about how long you're going to be open. I don't care about, I want to make another $1 million, Connie. I'm trying to, that's not me. Because now you're going to be trying to rush. Like, there's a number attached to this. No, there's not. Don't attach the number to it. What are you going to look like with this crazy, messy business that you have right now? How many people are going to quit? How much, you know how expensive it is to train people
Attrition is
over
painful.
and over and over and over again? So I don't care if you made $1 million. There's a bunch of people that made $1 million and they broke now. How many years are you going to be open? That's what's important to me.
Big facts. So I know that you help people do this, obviously, right? And I think you have a book as well, Scrambled Eggs.
It is. Look at you.
And so for those who listen to this podcast right now and they're like, well, I'm gonna get Connie's book, which we'll put in the show notes, and maybe if I'm in position to hire her, I might hire her. But what are, like, for the listeners, like 3 policies, procedures that everybody should have across the board? Just like 2 to 3, like, you have to have these, right, for your business if you had to pick them out. I know there's a ton, but if you had to pick a few.
One policy, you need to have and this is just because it's law. If you have a brick and mortar building, you need to have a fire plan, an escape plan that's there. And you have to have the policies that support it. All of that goes in your operational manual. And I know that sounds crazy, because most people, if you don't have a brick and mortar, you're like, well, I don't need that.
Right.
Brick and mortar buildings, that's something that you need. Solopreneurs, you need to have a policy for yourself when it comes to time. And you need to have a schedule. What is your open and what time do you close? Because what happens with a lot of solopreneurs especially, you just be doing whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. You came out of corporate, you had to be there at 8, you left at 5 o'clock, but then you become an entrepreneur, you just doing whatever you want to, and you're not rich yet, and you don't have no systems in place, or you don't have a team to be able to execute all the stuff. So the first policy I would put in is your time. You need to have a time to clock in, and that needs to be written out. Here at Doggy Dog Dog LLC, we start at this time. We have a lunch break at this time. Right? Because in the personal world, we're like, oh, we just need to be better at our time. No, this is your job. You come in here, you work here, you clock in and you clock out. It doesn't have to be formal, but you have to have that time in place, because what happens is you'll get lost and you'll get farther away from your goal because you don't even have the time management piece in place. So the first policy I would put in is a time policy. An SOP that you have to have is how you train. So you can train through a CRM. There's tons of softwares and things that are out there like that, but how you train is important. I train on the spot. Like, she literally was on the calls with me years. So that's important to me, because I need you to hear my tone. I need you to hear when Connie's being funny. I need you to hear when Connie's like, no. I need you to hear when Connie is in prayer with somebody. So my training is different than most people's training. But the way you train, it has to be documented, because for the two of you, you're like, just do this. All you gotta do is this. All right, then I'll see y'all later. Make sure that it's done. And then you're gonna leave. You're gonna sit and say, all right, so I know in your experience, you've already worked, blah, 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 blah. Y'all can't both be training people 2 different ways. You have to have a how we train SOP, and it has to be documented, and it has to be the only way that it gets done. If I take both of y'all out and somebody still needs to be trained back at the company, I need them to be trained the exact same way.
And that's and you articulated something that I always thought. So you know how you go into like a restaurant or something, it's like a hipster vibe. Like all the employees are kind of they look and feel the same way. And I'm like, that's a system, right? It's not they're not discriminating. It's just like they have such a well dialed in system and core values, and they just are literally attracting the right person. And from a training standpoint, right, it's not coincidental, right? It's all document it. So the easier it looks or the more intuitive it feels, the more back-end work that went into it. Like I remember like it was yesterday when the first iPhone came out and it had one button. And that was revolutionary, right? For a phone that just had that one little button, right? On the screen. And I think Steve Jobs said something. He was like, in order for us to do that, right? To make it the user experience so simple for the end user, we have to do so much behind the scenes to make it that seamless. And I think that's the part that people miss. Like Jordan's famous quote of just like, I'm sorry for making it look this easy, right? And that's what a real business is. It's like you've thought through every scenario. If this, then that, and you've really done that due diligence. It is going to seem easy to the end user, but y'all did so much behind the scenes. Like I know even our business with like our CRMs and our process, like our ops team. Shout out to the ops team, right? They do so much.
Dramatically underpaid ops team, according to Connie.
Right, now because they're doing two hats.
Trying to help them out.
They'll be so relieved to hear that. Yeah. But yeah, it's just making so much sense to me that like nothing is an accident, right? Success is intentional. Yes. It's very intentional. I think people just don't think that. They just think it's just, I got a skill set or I'm good at this and then it's all going to magically fall in place. And that's just not how it works. Not in the big leagues, at least.
No. And to help you, Sugarfoot, success doesn't love speed. Success loves systems. So I know. Yeah,
you just broke everything I believe in.
I know. I'm always scared to say that publicly because I know that's the thing. Success, you just got to get out there and try.
Well, so here's I'll counter with that. At the beginning, your success is determined by your intensity, your speed. But in the long term, your success is determined by your consistency, which is systems. So you might need to move fast to get started, but to grow at the level that most people say they want to grow at, you can't keep running or you'll run into a wall, right? It has because 10 people can move faster than you at your fastest if they're moving in accordance to a system, a plan, and in the same direction. So I can meet you halfway there.
I'm good. I'm good with that.
And so here's a question. So what is that balance though of like, because we're not venture backed companies, right? We're small business owners who are doing their thing, right? Reinvesting their profits to grow your business. And obviously like, you want to start with the end in mind, which is the famous quote, which I believe there's a lot of truth to that. But you also want to, you want to move effectively and efficiently, right? So what would you say that balance is of like, you might know up front, like I probably should be documenting this a little bit better or probably should have these procedures in place versus like, let me get this thing going, right? Because if you talk to an attorney, they're going to tell you, trademark everything from day one, have the LLCs, have the holding company. And I'm not saying that's not true, right? Two things can be true at the same time, but how do we balance the need for doing things the formal right way while also still running at a good pace so that you can get things done?
So it's no balance, it's just harmony, right? So all of the things, just like an orchestra, that's what Stephanie always says. It's an orchestra, it's all playing together. We need it to all be in tune.
Right.
But I don't want you to document anything that doesn't make sense. I do want the mistakes to be documented, but I don't want you just out there like, yo, I need to go. Because you make more mistakes moving like that. Like, I got to just put some money behind this. Got to put some money behind that. Oh, and so-and-so said, and then you're listening to 5 different coaches and 16 different gurus. And now you just spending money everywhere. And now there's no structure in place. So the harmony of that is documenting the mistakes, moving forward. And then when you start to see the changes where it's like, okay, I bet 50 and I got 50 back. Okay, great. How did I do that? What did I play? What did I say? Okay, how many people were playing? Okay, now I bet 50 and then I got 60 back. Okay, what happened differently? So those things I want you to document.
Right.
The wins, the losses are important because you need to be able to explain it to somebody else. I tried to make a pound cake like my Nana and I had the recipe and I did all the stuff except for the order that she said to put it in. Apparently baking soda, where you put that in, how many times you mix it, you're not supposed to mix it as many times. And it was flat like a rock and it was terrible, right? I had all the ingredients, I had all the stuff, but I missed something in there. So that one little piece that I missed, the reason why I wrote down a little note on the side of that recipe was like, hey, you have to stop, is because I made that mistake. It's the same thing in business. You still need to be able to, because somebody's going to be like, oh, I know he told us to do this, but I think it would be faster if I just put everything in a bowl and I'll get the cake out. No, here's a side note on, here's the policy on why we don't do it that way. And here's the repercussions on why that happens. And we're like, why do we have to do that? Because the people that are working for you are human, for now, at least, until AI takes over coming out here. But that's the explanation. People are still humans. They're still curious. They want to know. And if y'all aren't here and y'all are on vacation and somebody else has to explain why you got to put this baking soda in at a different time than when you put in this butter and the flour, if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. And they're going to take the time. They're going to take your resources. They're going to be getting paid to make mistakes that if y'all would have just wrote that part down, they wouldn't have had to make that mistake.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So if you could go back, you've been in business 18 years, right?
Yes.
If you could go back and tell that version of Connie anything based upon all the experience that you've gathered over the past 18 years that would help her get faster, because obviously now you have more context and more insight and more resources, what would you tell that version of Connie who's just getting started 18 years ago today?
I tell her all kind of stuff. Girl, save that money. Save the money, baby. I would have got into government contracting faster. That's a whole separate company. I would have started that faster. 2, I would have hired sooner. Okay. Because I literally started off writing business plans, like handwriting business plans, marketing plans, doing the financial projections, all writing that. Because back in my day, before you just had all this internet stuff and you could just go online and download a business plan, you really had to do the research on this stuff. You really had to do the work. You had to go into the Secretary of State office and stand in line and wait. You couldn't just go online and apply for stuff. You had to wait in the mail to get your tax ID number. Now everything is online. So I would definitely hire someone for that time, so that way I could have went out and met more clients. I would have charged my worth sooner. And you guys did had one of your podcasts before that talked about making sure that you're charging your worth, or they're going to think you're cheap. I think you had to guess those on there.
Dr. Dunn, yeah.
Yes, that's what it was, exactly. And that happened to me too. I had the U.S. Supreme Court judge who I didn't even know that's what her role was, that I was doing all kind of stuff for, and I'm just chucking out. She was like, oh, well, could you do this? Yes. I was broke. She was one of my first clients. Like, well, my daughter needs her scholarship stuff written. Could you? Yes, I could do that too. 3 months went by. I never asked for any money. I was too scared. And then she was like, can you give me an invoice for everything? And I gave her an invoice for $2,500. It's 3 months worth of work. And I'm with her every day. I done organized her office. I did all the file work. We done brought all the stuff from DC down here and put her office together. I done put her office into a trust. I've done all this crazy stuff for her. I gave her that invoice for $2,500. I didn't have no office. We were sitting in Starbucks. She looked at it and she laughed her tail off, like the knee slapping laugh. And she handed it back to me. She said, don't you ever give anybody an invoice like this. I can't even refer you to my friends because they're going to think you're cheap. And cheap isn't worth anything. I would have paid you 3 times this for all the work that you did. Now I'm crying. I'm in this poor little lady lap. I'm just boo-hooing in her lap. She's like, it's okay. But you do great work. You're really smart, but you're undercharging. I gave her information. She got my information from the bank, from somebody else's business that I had started. And she's like, you have a good name, but you can't be named cheap.
You got a good name, but can't be named cheap.
Can't be named cheap. And then she wrote me a check for 3 times the amount.
And that's a real one right there. That's a real one right there.
Because I wrote the check, and then after the fact, let me give you a little lesson. I'm gonna give you a tip.
I would have gave you 2x, but I would have told you I would have paid you 3x, but I would have gave you 2x because I would have made you pay for that lesson. Right. But to pay you 3, she's a real one. She's a real one.
She was, and she referred me to all and she referred me to all of her friends. Then I went from doing meetings in Starbucks, and now I got an office in Buckhead across from Lennox. Right. So all of those conversations over the years, I wish that somebody would have told me that sooner. I also wish that I would have spent more time with family instead of hustle mode. So if I regret being such an awful hypocrite because my world I'm systems babe. My whole world revolves around systems, but I didn't have any in place for myself. So I didn't have any life systems. So all I would do is business. So there's moments in my daughter when she was growing up, when she was little, I don't remember when her hair grew so long. Like one day I looked at her and her ponytail was this big. And I was like, you just had a fade the other day. When did you grow this hair? But I'm like, I'm making the money. I'm grinding. I'm government contracting. I'm doing this. I'm writing this. And I was hustling like all day, all night. I'm going to be single. all I'm gonna do is just work. No man's gonna want to put up with the fact that if my phone ring and I got a client that's in Ghana that's calling and another one that's calling from Alaska, I'm gonna, hello, good morning, how can I help you? Right? And so during that time, I missed my daughter in like 1 to 3. I don't know what happened because I was in the mode, but I felt like the best parent ever because I work from home and I can pick her up from school every day. And I can be at all the PTA meetings and I bring the cupcakes and I know all the kids in the classroom and then we can do stuff on the weekends. So I felt good and I felt prideful about that until she was 5 and she asked me, do you like that more than you like Ashley?
Ooh.
Oh.
I said, what? And she was like, that. And I have my laptop in my hand. I was like, no, mommy loves you more than everything. You're my favorite person in the whole wide world. Well, you hold that more than you hold Ashley.
Oh. Ooh.
And I died on that day.
Ooh.
I died on that day. And we just looked at each other. And she's just the sweetest little girl. Because our deal is we always tell the truth, right? It's like, yeah. And I looked and I was like, she's right. I do hold this laptop more than I hold her. And I'm so prideful because I think I'm hustling. I'm doing this for my baby. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make sure she doesn't ever have to go through the things that I went through. Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't even know when her hair grew. Like, I missed all of that. And I didn't even know that she noticed. And praise God that she did actually say something because I don't know when it would have ever stopped. And so on that day, I closed my laptop. I turned my phone off for the first time in history. You know, you just turn the sound down and you just turn the screen off. I powered it and shut it down. And I took her to the zoo. And we have a beautiful picture of us there. And we were holding hands. She was like, Mommy, look, you're holding my hands. Because I would always have my phone in my hand. I couldn't hold her hand. And so that
I just got chills. That's wow.
It's an embarrassing. It still puts a knot in my throat. Like it's hard. It's hard to say, especially publicly. But I know that changes lives, especially when you have kids and you have parents. And you know, my dad is growing older, and I'm like, if I don't spend this time now, I'll never have this time. I'll never see my daughter at 1 again. I'll never see. I don't know what 2 even looked like. 3 is when I realized she had hair. And thinking of all those years for her to be holding that in to finally say that. My goal is to make sure that you have a sustainable business that has a team and systems in place. You don't have that conversation, that you don't get it from your spouse, that you don't get it from your girlfriend, your boyfriend, that you definitely don't get it from your kids, and that you don't miss out on the time that you would give with your parents before they perish. And so when I think about systems, I don't care about SOPs. I don't care about policy. That's not what my heart is. My heart is in mental health. My heart is in making sure that we're okay, that we're safe. Most entrepreneurs, 72% of entrepreneurs state that they have anxiety. And or are medicated. I have anxiety. I do take medication for it. And literally, because in my mind, it won't stop. ADHD. You lay in the bed, your mind is just going and going and going and going. And if you can't release that and document some of that stuff that's in your head, you're going to lose it. Get it out, get it on paper, give it to somebody else who's supposed to do it, but somebody that you trained really, really well, somebody that's excited about doing it. Stephanie loves my business more than I love it on most days because I trained her well, because she takes pride in it. As long as we're still in our mind, we'll never just be able to be calm. And I know successful men like you, and I say this intentionally to both of you guys will have to at some point slow down. This is your mode. This is the season right now for y'all to do what y'all need to do. But when I'm looking at all the entrepreneurs, especially my men that are out here doing really, really well, you don't take time to celebrate your wins because you're thinking about the next thing. Gotta go. You be like, yo, I made $1 million in a day. Bet. All right, so next month, wait, hold on. Stop.
Hey, you better get out of here, man. You better get. Hey, come on, man. You coming to my road?
I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And I watched him. I done sat Neil down, pushed his wide shoulders, and pulled him down into a chair, and had to look people in the eyes and have these conversations. Because especially for our men that are doing well, you never take the time to celebrate. You have to start slowing down, and you will not let yourself slow down if you don't trust the people out here to do the work. And you won't trust the people, because that's the number one problem that entrepreneurs have is trust. They've been burnt by somebody else. They try to train somebody else, but they train them off the top of their head. They hate trying to bring new people into the company because they don't want to share their secrets with them. And so they end up doing every single task. And as long as you do that, you're going to do it to the day you die. You're going to do it, black man, until you have a heart attack, until you have a stroke, until you have high blood pressure, until you're on medication, until you lose your spouse, until your kids are having the conversation that I have. I need you guys to make sure that you're taking the time to celebrate, the time to take care of your health, and not just the shirtless health, but not just to take a shirt off and wear little shorts. I need you guys to make sure you're doing it for your mental health, because that's what I really care about. It's Connie Falls and the Essence for Systems, but it's really for self-care. It's for sanity. It's for stress-free. That's my goal in my entire company.
Well,
that wasn't therapy.
right. So I would tell you to drop the bike, but it's expensive bike. We don't have a system on how to
Very nice.
we don't have a system on how to reorder now.
What happens if the mic is dropped?
Right. But no, Connie, this was an absolutely amazing episode. Thank you for all the insight. Tremendous. For truly. The final question that I have for you, the question we ask all our guests is, obviously it's no secret that we super serve people that look like us, the same way that you serve, small business owners alike. And so our question is to you, what does it mean to be a melanin millionaire?
See, that makes me want to cry. Oh my gosh. It's scary, especially when you don't come from much, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I go home, I'm from Fresno, California, so I didn't know it was country until I realized we used to get eggs from the farm. Mm-hmm. But going home and seeing how far I've come, it's beautiful. Yeah. Being able to give back, being able to make sure that my family is okay, being able to make sure that when my dad is like, man, I always wanted to go to New York and see the Statue of Liberty, and the next weekend, me, him, and my daughter are gone. It means that I am creating something that people will be proud of that will never meet me. They'll never hug me. They'll never see me in person. Right. But they'll be able to say, because of Connie, I was able to do this. Because she put this together, I was able to do this. I had a job to work at, because of Connie and because of Ashley, my daughter. My auntie Ashley gave me a job. So when I think about being a melanin millionaire, I think about the legacy. I think about my father being proud. He called me one day. My dad's not an emotional person by any means. Yeah. He called me the other day and was like, hey, man, I just want to say that I'm proud of you. What? What'd you say? Say it again. Is there a record button on the phone? Yeah. I'm like, no, I was just listening to one of these interview things that you do. And you know what you're talking about. I'm very proud of you. That's just how he sounds. If you ever hear my dad. I'm proud of you. I just want to call and tell you that. Yeah. That's what that means to me.
Well, nothing else needs to be said. Connie, thanks again for coming on the show. Tremendous. And to all the candle makers, we're sorry. Until next episode.
Peace.